Horseshoe is a venue which is steeped in carp fishing history. It's full of beautiful carp and a lake which I've wanted to visit for an awful long time. And today is finally the day where I'm going to have the chance of catching a couple of residents which live in here. The peg which I'm going to be setting up in gives me good scope across open water, so if I see fish showing in different parts of the lake, I'm going to be able to move and act upon it. But enough of me talking, I want to go get them rods out and try and catch my first ever horseshoe carp. Well, I'm in the swim now, and the first thing which I decided to do when setting up was get the legend rod out there and have a little bit of an investigation to see what's out there on the lake bed. From research, I've found out that this lake can be weedy and quite silty in areas, so what I decided to do was message a few mates who have fished down here in the past, and in particular this swim, and see if they knew of any spots out there. Now, one spot which I got told about was aiming just right of the houses on the far bank, 21 wraps. There's a nice gravel bed out there, and surprisingly, they weren't lying, and the feature does actually exist. So what I'm going to be doing is fishing two rods nice and tight on the gravel. The mix which I'm going to be introducing, it's going to be a bit of a small seed mix, a bit of hemp, a bit of corn, a proper grubbing around mix. And the reason I'm going to be doing this is because the carp in here, they travel around in big shoals, and if they get on that mix, it's going to hold them there for a long period of time, and I'm sure we'll be able to get a few bites. So all I'm going to do is tie a few fresh rigs up, get the rods out, introduce a bit of bait, and I don't want to jinx it, but I am feeling confident we might be able to catch one on the first evening. But let's not run ahead of ourselves, let's get these rods out and see what happens. The baiting up approach down on Horseshoe was something which I took into consideration, and I put a lot of thought into it. The mix which I've been using is small seed mix, crumbed up boilies, sweet corn, a proper grubbing around mix. And the reason behind this was it was quite a light mix, so when I was spotting it out there and it was sinking, it would be lying on top of the low-lying silkweed which is present in Horseshoe. Also, with the particle, it was going to keep the carp grubbing around for a long period of time. There are a few tension here, however, I felt like if I put the particle in and I did start catching tench, once the carp move in the area, there weren't going to be a problem.
Well, you joined me just on first light. I've had a wonderful night's sleep, and my right hander has just absolutely screamed off, and we're attached into what hopefully is going to be my first ever horseshoe carp. Yes, my first ever horseshoe carp. Get in there. I love catching carp, but especially from a new venue, and to be fair, it's not as small as I was expecting when I was playing it. Not gonna lie, I was half expecting a tench to pop up, but I knew it was going to be a carp. The rod, it was absolutely ripping off. The cameramen struggled waking up. I'm not sure what planet they were on. Get in! Oh, and look at that. The hook just came out in the net. Shows how good my rigs are. When your luck's in, your luck is in. And there we have it, my first ever horseshoe carp. It's just on first light now. It's looking really carpy out there. The rain's just starting to move in. The guy opposite just caught one, and I've been able to catch this. Like I said, my first ever one from Horseshoe. It's the most important bite of the session, and after catching this one, I know that the bait out there is working, so I'm going to sit back, get the kettle on, and I'm pretty sure, or pretty confident to say, we might be able to catch a few more this morning. Get in. After catching that carp on first light, I really wanted to get the rod back out on the spot, but I'm not going to lie, the heavens opened and I couldn't think of anything worse being sat there trying to get a rod out on the spot. So I got the rig ready, leant it up against the bivvy, waited for the rain to pass, and then got the rod back out on the spot first time.
Now I was fairly confident after catching that first carp that there was going to be more fish in the area. I was already starting to think possibly of making a move. I caught that one, but I knew that Horseshoe you can have multiple bites, and I've been watching the guy on the opposite bank and he'd caught a few carp through the night. When I'm turning up to a new venue for the first time, like I have on this session down at Horseshoe, the last thing that I like to do is play around with different tactics and bait which I don't normally use within my fishing. If you do this and you don't catch, you're going to lose confidence, you're not going to be catching anything, and you're probably going to end up never wanting to visit the venue again. So on this session I decided to go with tactics which I know work anywhere where I take them. The lake bed which I found out there was nice clean gravel, so I knew that I'd be able to get away with using my favourite rig, which is a blowback rig. I just find these so effective, so simple, and I feel like keeping things simple, it will certainly help increase your chance of a bite. I gave it until around midday over in Winter's Point. However, as the days progressed, nothing's happened. I did actually see one carp show near the spot and I felt like there could have been a chance, but nothing's happened. Now I've decided to walk around. I'm still in Winter's Bay and I'm stood in peg 21. There was a guy in here last night and he caught one around the same time when I had that bite this morning. He's just packed up and it turns out he actually caught 3 carp last night. Now, that could be because there's a lot of carp here, or it could be he was a better angler than me. I'm not really sure, but I'm going to say there's a few more carp over on this side. So what I'm going to do is I've just put a bucket in the swim. I'm going to get round there, pack up the gear, set up here. Again, it gives me plenty of open water. I can see right down the lake. I do feel a lot more comfortable and confident setting up in this peg. So let's not waste any more time, get packed up and get moving. In the first swim which I'd fished, I'd messaged the mate about a spot and I was able to find it very quickly. However, this swim I didn't know anyone who had fished in there in the past. The guy who'd been fishing there the night before, he'd packed up and left, so I was sort of left to my own device to find a spot out there with the legend rod. I'm not gonna lie, it took a lot longer than I was expecting. Eventually I was able to find a spot just over 25 wraps, and this spot was very small and I knew that it was going to take multiple casts to make sure them rigs were bang on the money. But by doing it several times and making sure that I found out exactly how big that spot was, when I was going to bed that evening, I'd know with confidence that I was doing everything within my power to maximise the chances of getting a bite. For this Fishery in Focus, you join me down here today at Horseshoe Lake. Horseshoe Lake is a 62-acre day ticket lake located in Gloucestershire with 75 pegs located around the bank. The lake contains around 800 to 1000 carp, with the average size being around 20 to 25 pound, and the majority of these are lovely scaly mirrors. The biggest in here goes just over 40 pounds at the right time of year, and there's plenty of other backup fish worth targeting. You've also got toilet facilities on site and bay lifts which are available to give you a helping hand. What I'm going to do now with the use of the iPad is give you a virtual guided tour around the lake and talk about a few of the swims and a few of the areas which I'd be checking out if I was coming down to Horseshoe for the first time. When you look at the map, you can break it up into 3 different sections. You've got Summer Bay, Winter Bay, and down the bottom end you've got a large bit of open water. The area which I've been fishing on this session is Winter Bay, and I'm going to talk about a few of the pegs in this area first. Starting off with the peg which I've been fishing on this session. This is peg 13, and before I came down here I'd done a little bit of research and found out that this can be a really popular peg. The reason it's popular is because you're out on a spit and it gives you great access out into the middle of this area of the lake. The spot that I've been fishing on this session is aiming 21 wraps towards the tree on the far side. Out here it's around 8 to 10 foot, nice clean gravel, so if I was fishing this peg this is certainly an area which I'd be checking out. As you move anti-clockwise around the bay, you then come to an area known as the lagoon. Now down here average depths are around 5 feet, and if I was looking to fish down here the pegs which I'd be targeting is peg 17 and 19. When the sun's out or the wind's blowing down here, this is an area where you'd expect to find quite a few carp, as it's the shallowest area within this part of the lake. Other pegs worth fishing in this area is pegs 28 down to 31. The reason I'd be targeting these pegs is you're able to chuck a long distance out into the middle, and when the lake's quite busy, this is an area where I'd expect to find the carp pushing out for a little bit of safety. As I mentioned, the lake's broken up into 3 different sections, and the second section which I'm going to be talking about is Summer Bay. Summer Bay, in comparison to the rest of the lake, is a lot shallower, with average depths in this area being around 2 to 3 feet. One popular area within this bay is Summer Point. Now exactly just like Winter Point, it gives you good access out into the middle of this zone. One slightly different thing compared to Summer Bay and Winter Bay is Summer Bay is a lot smaller compared to Winter, so if fishing out long isn't your strong point, this is certainly an area that I'd be checking out. As you move clockwise around the bay, you then come to an area known as the lawns. Now in the lawns you've got some lily pads in close, a bit of weed, a bit of gravel. There's a proper mixed variation in terms of different features, and if I couldn't find any carp, this is certainly an area I'd be checking out. It's, to be honest, whether it's winter or summer, I could just imagine finding a few fish in that zone. If you jump onto the far side and move down the bank, which is also known as the trout bank, you'll then find pegs 56 to 58. Now in front of these pegs there's a few small gravel areas worth checking out. I'll be checking these pegs out if there's going to be a weather change. For example, if it's cold and the temperatures are going to be increasing, the carp are going to move from Winter Bay, where it's deep, into the shallower Summer Bay, and this is going to be a great interception point as they move around Boat Point. The final pegs which I'm going to talk about are pegs 46 and 47, and these can be found right down in the bottom corner. I'd be looking at fishing in these pegs if there's a strong westerly wind blowing into this bank. The fish love to follow a wind on Horseshoe, and the great thing about fishing in these pegs is you can fish right underneath your rod tips and have great sessions. Just like any fishery in focus, this is just a rough guide for when you're fishing down here at Horseshoe. The best thing you can do if you're turning up here for the first time is speak to anglers, speak to the bailiffs, do your research, so when you come down here you've got a better understanding on where you're going to find the carp. I woke up around 3:30, 4:45 in the morning, looked out across the lake, and yeah, it looked pretty bleak. I didn't see a single carp out there, I hadn't had a bleep through the night, and I decided to do what all good carp anglers should do in this situation, and that is go back to bed. However, a couple of hours later I was rudely awoken as there were still a few fish in the area, and one of them had decided to have a little bit of a feed and get absolutely nailed on the blowback. Oh, once you showed on the spot, right on the spot. Oh, they're moving in. Yes! Oh, I was starting to think moving was a bad angling decision on my part, but I kept calm, had a little sleep, and we've got one. And it's a nice common as well. Yes! And there we have it, the second carp of the session, and it made the move worthwhile. Horseshoe is known for scaly mirrors, and you might think this is a mid-20 common, but we're gonna lie to ourselves and it's a fully scaled. But while I was playing this fish, I actually seen one show just behind the spot, so there's a chance for moving into this area. So I'm gonna get the fish back, put the rod back out, a few more spots, and there's a chance to maybe have one more before the end of the session. Here are my 3 top tips for when you're fishing down here on Horseshoe Lake. My first top tip is, since Horseshoe is broken up into 2 large bays, it's really hard to be able to find one area where you get a view all across the lake. So if you're turning up on a session, it can be quite difficult to set up on the fish straight away. Now if I set up in a swim and I haven't seen fish show for the first part of the session, I'll certainly start speaking to the other anglers on the lake and have walks to the opposite bay which I'm fishing to. By doing this you'll be able to locate the carp and catch them much quicker rather than camping in one area. My second top tip is, when you're fishing out there, the lake bed, it's quite soft still, a lot of silkweed, and if I was to put whole items out such as 12 and 15mm boilies, I feel like these would sink too quick. However, introducing crumbed up boilies, small seed mix, it's going to flutter down, and members carp passing over the area, they're going to be able to find this bait much easier. My third and final tip for fishing down here is there's a lot of wildlife and bird life out on the lake. No, it's bird. Stupid animals. Who put them on this planet? Now, if you get the rods out and you haven't had a bite after a few hours, the chances are the birds might have dived down, messed your rig presentation, or possibly taken off your hook bait. So this is the case, every few hours just rechuck the rods, and by doing that you'll make sure you're presented all throughout your session. And that is the end of our session down here on Horseshoe. It's been my first ever time down at the lake and I've really enjoyed it. The fishing, it has been quite slow, it's been difficult, but we've put the effort in, we've been able to catch a couple of lovely carp on cameras. But from this video, I hope you guys have learned a tip or two, so if you're coming down here for the first time, you'll be able to catch a couple of carp or maybe do a little bit better than I have. But for now, I'm going to get this rod in and make the long drive back up north.